Welcome to my program, Bashy's Corner. In this program, we take issues which normally mainstream media doesn't care, or maybe they're afraid to discuss these issues. But we do. For many years, Denmark was a model country when it comes to taking refugees, giving asylum to those people who are oppressed, and also have a very nice minority politics. But from 80s, things changed. Denmark became a very closed country. Asylum seekers were refused, and ethnic minorities living in Denmark had their situation worsened. Danish People Party single-handedly forced various governments in Denmark to make very tight asylum laws against family reunion, and also other laws which made the life very miserable for ethnic and religious minorities in Denmark. Luckily, most Danes did not listen to the government policies. They opened their hearts, they opened their homes, and welcomed refugees and asylum seekers and assisted them as best as they could. One such wonderful person is my guest today. She and her partner has been a role model when it comes to helping asylum seekers, giving them hope and giving them something to do. Welcome to my program, Tone. I'm so happy and actually very proud that you spared some time to come to my program.
I'm very honored to be here. I'm a great fan.
Thank you very much. You and your partner, Morten Gold, they started Trampoline House in 2010 with other group of professionals. Why was this house, particularly this house, needed?
Well, I have to say that it was not just me and Morten. We were a big group of art students from the Royal Danish Academy, another artist, his name is Joachim Hamu, and most importantly, a big group of asylum seekers from two asylum centers in Denmark, Center Kongelund and Center Sandholm.
Kongelund is not being closed?
Kongelund is now being closed, okay. Yes. We got together in a series of workshops beginning in 2009, where we wanted to ask residents of asylum centers in Denmark what they thought of the asylum system, where they would identify the good things about the system, but also the problematic things.
Okay.
And this is where the idea to create a trampoline house was born.
And why the word effort. Trampoline? Is for children to jump up and down?
The name Trampoline House came up by one of the residents from Center Kongelund.
Okay.
It's a direct reference to a former integration minister in Denmark who at one point had said that integration into Denmark should be like a stepping stone. And he said, as an asylum seeker, having spent more than 10 years in Center Kongelund at that point, that he needed more than a stepping stone, he needed a trampoline.
Okay, well, that's very fitting. You and the you are co-founder and director of CAMP, the Center for Art and Migration Politics.
Yeah.
What does asylum seeking has to do with arts and politics?
Well, after we opened Trampoline House in 2010, you could say that Trampoline House deals with everyday urgencies of being an asylum seeker, and in the long run we're also trying to work for structural change. We believe that the camp system, the asylum center system, is wrong. It's making people sick.
So it's where when people come, they are put in the camps.
They are put in there.
And they're not allowed to go and live in the society.
You are not, when you seek asylum in Denmark, allowed to choose your own accommodation. You have to live in one of the asylum centers. And as a general rule, you are not allowed to work or educate yourself unless you get special permission from the Danish Immigration Service. So people basically are kept in asylum centers while their asylum case is pending or processing. And during that time, many of them describe the waiting time as a limbo of sleeping and eating, living in uncertainty, sleeping, eating, living in uncertainty.
They must get psychological problems, some of them.
They get psychological problems, people get physical problems. There's also numerous studies that show that the longer you stay in the Danish asylum system, the more sick you get. So these everyday urgencies we're dealing with in Trampoline House, right? We offer legal counseling, we do different activities together, we have classes, and we have a social space for getting away from the pressures of the camp, and for also campaigning for a different kind of asylum system.
Okay.
But we also needed a space where we could analyze the structural causes for why people have to flee, and what these conditions, how these conditions are constructed. And this is when we decided that it would be interesting to establish an exhibition space inside Trampoline House, which is called CAMP.
Okay.
And CAMP is short for Center for Art on Migration Politics.
Okay. You are quite admired for your work with human rights. Did you always had this passion for helping disadvantaged?
Well, I'm super glad to hear that. No, I think when I was younger, I was pretty self-absorbed in my own youth. But it was moving to United States and going to school there that kind of awakened not just a political consciousness, but this idea that I could use my art historical education to curate art that advocates for social change.
So you have to go out of Denmark to realize what you're doing.
Exactly.
Okay.
You always have to leave a certain spot to be able to really look at it, I think.
And then you got involved in this kind of human rights work.
Yes.
Okay.
With art as a tool.
As a main, yes,
Yeah.
as an instrument.
Yeah.
I understand that you have also studied, as you say, history of art at the University of Copenhagen also.
Yeah.
And later fine art in many universities abroad. But did you work in those branches?
Yes, I'm trained as an art historian, and then I went to UCLA in Los Angeles to get a degree in curating, which is exhibition organizing. And then I've been acting as an independent curator ever since. Worked a little bit in the Louisiana Museum when I was younger, but I'm so fortunate that with Trampoline House and with CAMP, the exhibition space, I have created my own workplace together with a lot of other people.
It is said by both Denmark and also internationally that Denmark as a state is very well functioning when it comes to receiving asylum seekers and putting them, of course, in camps. Why it was necessary to have an NGO doing this work?
Well, there's an interesting term within the studies done on the Danish asylum system, and that is the honeymoon period. The honeymoon period refers to the first month when refugees arrive in Denmark to seek asylum. The first month is a honeymoon period to many because they're very grateful to finally have arrived in a safe place. The Danish state provides shelter, food, clothing, and a little bit of pocket money every 2 weeks.
For cigarettes?
For cigarettes, some of the centers allow you to cook your own food, so this money would also cover cooking your own meals and shopping for them.
Is it enough, this money?
It's very little money. It's around 1,000 kroner for one person every 2 weeks, and that covers everything from toothpaste to toilet paper to clothing and transport. But after the honeymoon period, people start to realize when they look around and they talk to other people in the asylum centers that this could take a very long time, that people spend years, months in the system, and the pressure of living in a center waiting for asylum is hard because there's always somebody waiting for you on the outside.
Exactly.
You have relatives, maybe you have kids, you have a partner or a spouse, parents also in danger, hoping to come here through family reunification. And this is when the system really starts to break people down mentally and physically. Because unlike a normal prison sentence, where you are given a certain time you have to be in prison, in the asylum centers you don't know how long you have to wait for an answer to your application, or for how long you have to wait to be deported if you're rejected. And it's this not being in charge of your own life, not being able to make decisions for your own life, which all the people in Trampoline House are saying this is the major problem.
It's very stressful too.
It's very stressful.
Now, can you tell me what kind of programs and activities that takes place? Because, as you say, when people come, they are grateful, they get food and shelter, but that is not enough. And so you are providing them something which maybe give them more hope.
Yeah, Trampoline House is really based on a family house.
Okay.
The idea is that everybody who are interested in having a say in what happens in the house and how it should be run can do so. It's a democratic house, and when you first arrive on your first visit, you are offered a job training contract,
okay.
a so-called praktik contract in the house. Twice a week, you contribute to maybe teaching a class if you are, a teacher from your home country, or maybe joining our hairdressing team if you're a professional hairdresser, or joining our catering service if you are a master chef. Everybody contributes to running to this house.
And it's voluntary?
It's voluntary.
Okay.
In return for doing job training or praktik in Trampoline House, we offer you 2 transport tickets a week.
Okay.
Because the pocket money you get in the camp is not enough for you to travel to Copenhagen twice a week.
And the camps are quite outside?
They are all located in the periphery. In average, I think people who use Trampoline House, they spend 1 to 2 hours each way commuting.
Is it on purpose? Because I have visited asylum centers in Germany, in France, different places. Many times they're in the city, and people move around, try to find jobs. But here it seems that they want to isolate them outside.
Yeah, I mean, there's different theories about this. I think the Danish asylum system is designed to keep people on the outside, away from society. The idea is that you are not allowed to become part of society until it has been decided whether you get asylum or not.
But it takes some time, 5 years, 6 years. I know people have been waiting 10 years. You can't put people in limbo.
You put people in camps and the state doesn't have any problems keeping them there. It argues that you can only be allowed to be fully part of the Danish society once Immigration Service or the Danish Appeals Board has had a look at your case. Okay. So this is a structure that is designed to keep people separate from mainstream society.
It's very strange. Anyway, these activities you do, I have seen that, it's amazing, and energy and places full of people. It's quite a mouthful. How do you manage all those things?
Everybody in Trampoline House works a lot. There's a lot of joy in the house because we all feel that it's our house. It's this unique model. It's not an integration model. When you arrive as a refugee or an asylum seeker in Denmark, it's not about adapting to the rules of Trampoline House. We develop the rules together. So I like to describe Trampoline House as a shared space. It's a space owned by nobody or by all of us. And I think this is really, if we have to talk about integration, I think this is a model that could work on the outside as well. On the outside meaning in Danish society.
On your Facebook I saw there is an initiative, or there was an exhibition. It said, "We shout and nobody listens."
Yeah.
Can you please explain to our viewers what does it mean?
Yeah, this is an exhibition we had up in Camp the Exhibition Space. It was just taken down. Okay. It is a space that examines the main cause of displacement at the moment, which is war. But it doesn't look at war from the perspective of, a Western photo journalist going and shooting conflict and terror and tragedy. The show presented artists who are living inside zones of conflict, or inside war zones, and are questioning why the international community are only intervening in conflicts where the West is involved somehow.
And their interest.
And their interest is involved. But that there are currently more than 40 conflicts going on in the world, and the international community is turning a blind eye to a lot of them. Yes. And this is also voices sounding from inside Trampoline House. You know, why is the international community publicly staging a public mourning when 7 people are killed on European soil in a terrorist attack, and not staging the same kind of public mourning when 50 people are blown up in Kabul in Afghanistan. So the show really discussed this whole notion of whether white lives matter more than black lives, and how this has something to do with why some wars and conflicts are being ignored and why others are not.
It's interesting you say that, because I just attended a conference in Strasbourg about terrorism and how it can be confronted by the media. And I was the only NGO representative, and I said, media is actually making a problem by only focusing when something happens in Europe, and it's rightly so, they should. But when it happens in Kashmir, or when it happens in Afghanistan or Turkey, then it's only one line or maybe one news, and that's it. Anyway. Absolutely. Another key word in your work I have noticed is solidarity. Isn't it a little cliche that we use this word solidarity?
Cliche in general, you mean? Or?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's very left-wing word, you know, we should have solidarity with the people.
Well, when I talk about solidarity, I'm thinking in particular about a number of feminists coming from India. Arundhati Roy.
Is she coming?
No, she's not coming. No,
we should invite her, actually.
Yeah, we should invite her.
I would like to pay her ticket if you invite her.
But there's a handful of really amazing feminists coming out of India, and they share this idea that we can have a feminism without borders if we believe in what is called deep solidarity. And deep solidarity is this ability to act in solidarity with people across different privileges and different kinds of boundaries. So across race, across social inequality, economical injustice, across gender and class.
She got a lot of flack in India because she went to Kashmir and spoke with those people there who are asking to be independent or have their own future in their hand, and it was not very much liked.
It was not popular.
And she doesn't care. She just said, this is for me justice. You know? So I have a lot of respect for her.
So for me, deep solidarity is this notion that you have to work for social change within your community, contribute to the better of your community, but it has to happen in accordance with bigger social struggles outside of your community.
So you want to combine that?
If I was only a feminist for white women, that would be a problem. So I have to act in deep solidarity with women across the world. So that's what I mean by solidarity.
Does Trampoline House also help asylum seeker in legal matters?
Yes. I think 1/3 of what we do in the house is to provide legal counseling and assistance. Okay. So we have one staff member doing this full time. We also have a handful of some of the best immigration lawyers in Denmark volunteering to give counseling once a week.
I think we should tell the government, give you more support.
Thank you.
You managed many art projects. I visited the project you call Deportation Regime, an artist's response to states' practices and living experience of forced removal of asylum seeker. Can you explain to our viewers what does it entail, that exhibition?
Well, Deportation Regime was the previous exhibition we had in Trampoline House, and it looked at what deportation is. Not just how deportations are carried out, like what physically happens when the police comes and takes you from a deportation center or a detention center and forcefully removes you.
They do that in Denmark?
They do that in Denmark, they do that around the world. And there's also different practices of actually drugging rejected asylum seekers, deportees, when they're being deported, so that
and put them in plane and out you go.
Put them in a plane, handcuff them, so that they don't make any trouble. So the show examined like what happens actually during deportation. It also examined how it feels to live with the fear of being deported. If you cannot have your residence permit renewed, for instance, if you are waiting to be deported because you've been rejected as an asylum seeker. And then most importantly, I think it looked also at what happens to people who have been deported when they return back to the country that they fear most, their country of origin, the country that they fled.
I know some example where they sent people to Afghanistan and there they were arrested, you know, and put in prison. So it's amazing that you go from camp to the prison. How has been the media interest in your work?
In Trampoline House or in camp or in both?
In both.
In both. Well, we've been, I think, very fortunate recently. I think Trampoline House is getting a lot of media attention, on social media, also mass media. And I think we've been able to present a model for how to handle migration into Denmark.
Or asylum or migration?
Migration in general into Denmark, both refugees and migrants. I think Trampoline House is a model for how we can be together, how we can share a certain space. And then Trampoline House is right now, I think, on a lot of people's lips, because we are arguing that integration into Denmark should happen from day one. This idea that we put people in a waiting position and don't allow them to do anything in the asylum centers is a waste of resources, and it breaks people down. It actually creates clients for the welfare system.
How is the response of the public? I mean, one thing is volunteers who come there because they have a good heart or they want to help, but what about the general Danish public?
Well, I think, again, like the network Venligboerne, there is an amazing...
It's one of the biggest one in Europe. Yeah.
It's a different kind of model, right? Because Trampoline House has a physical facility. And Venligboerne is like a network of people organizing all over the countries to support refugees. Locally, yes. Then Trampoline House's main focus is asylum seekers and providing a physical space where you can get a break from the asylum center life. And
coming back to asylum seekers, you meet a lot of different asylum seekers in your center. From which countries mostly asylum seekers are coming now? Apart from Syria, or Afghanistan.
Well, Syria, of course,
number one.
In Trampoline House, we have a lot of Iranians, we have a lot of Afghans, we have a lot of Iraqis, we have a lot of West Africans, East Africans, we have people from Central Asia, we have people from all over, basically. People from Thailand, Malaysia, Bangladesh.
So it's the whole world wherever there's a problem.
The whole world.
Now, people who are watching this program or who will watch this program and listen to you and your sense of solidarity and help, they can ask, and that Denmark cannot be the provider for asylum to the whole world, It's a small country. What would you say to them?
I would say that migration is not something that we can ever get rid of, and all research shows that the so-called mass migration we experienced in 2015 is nothing compared to the migrations we will see in near future when the effects of climate change will take in. So I think instead of spending resources on discussing how we can keep people out, we have to spend resources on thinking how we can share spaces, how we can share the world. People are arguing in a longer sense that we need to break down borders and so forth. I think quite practically we have to We have to maybe come up with an idea where we can develop a global refugee and migration politics, where we discuss how can we distribute the number of people being forced to flee or forced to migrate. But structurally, we also have to go back and we have to ask, it's not only climate change producing migration, it's also unfair trade agreements. It's the global south not being able to sell its produce to the same prices anywhere else, not to enter economic and trade markets. And when you can't make a living back home, you are forced to flee. So we have to do something about this economic
but then some
inequality.
People will say that why not help those people in their neighboring countries? Let them stay there.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
Well, I think it's a wonderful idea to help people in their neighboring countries, but the question is how. If helping people in a neighboring country means that you put them in a refugee camp, counting 80,000 in Kenya, that's not helping them. But if you open for trade agreements, if you start to trade fairly, if you import coffee from Kenya, if you actively try to solve the conflict in Syria and develop these different areas, then
why don't you go to a political party? You have such a wonderful ideas.
Thank you.
You're not interested in politics?
I'm very interested in politics, but maybe not parliamentary.
Not party politics?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does CAMP has a newsletter or a website people can go and have a look at it?
Yeah, the exhibition space has a website called Camp CPH, because it's a camp in Copenhagen. So campcph.org.
Okay.
And you can sign up for the newsletter at the bottom of the website if you scroll down.
Now, $1 million question. You do so many activities, so many things are happening there. Whenever I go there, I'm astounded, the amount of people, food and everything. From where the money comes?
1/3 of our money right now actually comes from people like you and me, private people who are donating on a monthly basis a small amount of money. Then we also get support from different public and private foundations. The Oak Foundation Denmark has supported Trampoline House for a long period of time. We've now been really fortunate to be awarded a big grant from the Tuborg Fund and from the Tryg Fund. And then we get also a grant from the Danish Immigration Service.
Okay. So you are quite safe to continue your work?
Oh, we're never safe.
No, but I mean in the near future.
In the near future, yes.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you
so much.
It
was a pleasure, and I'm sure
Thank you for having
that
me.
The things Tone has told, and with the passion and the solidarity, individual like Tone shows that we Danes are really number one when we want to help somebody. Until next week, take good care of yourself.